beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so excited you're here and even more excited to introduce our next guest, Cyndi Ramirez-Fulton. I am ecstatic for this episode because I have just admired Cyndi so much and her amazing ambition when it comes to creating Chillhouse and really changing the industry. So before giving away too much, let's dive into her bio. Born and raised in New York City, Cyndi Ramirez-Fulton is the founder and CEO of self-care brand Chillhouse. Chillhouse was born when Ramirez-Fulton and her husband realized that the city didn't offer an aspirational massage place that was affordable. Chillhouse currently has a flagship in Soho, which offers a suite of spa services. In addition to their physical space, Chillhouse has a line of products ranging from press-ons to body care. The brand is carried by the likes of Target, Saks, Urban Outfitters, Shopbop, and more. Ramirez has been honored on Create Cultivate 100 list, WWD's 40 of Tomorrow, Nylon's 2018 Investor of the Year, Guest of a Guest 20 Hottest CEOs of 2018, New Beauty Muse, and has appeared in campaigns with Nike, Bumble, Fossil, amongst others. Additionally, she has been featured in Vogue, Harper's, Bazaar, Allure, Forbes, CNN, WWD, and more. She splits her time between Manhattan and Miami with her partner and entrepreneur husband, Adam Fulton, and their son, Hendrix. I am so excited. This episode, we're going to dive into all things entrepreneurship, really understanding what it's like to build a business like this and how she identifies success. We're going to talk about her chill routine. We're going to talk about things that keep her grounded and take a sneak peek into what life was pre-entrepreneurship. So let's dive in. This is going to be an amazing episode. Hello, my beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so excited to introduce our next guest, Cyndi Ramirez-Fulton. Welcome to the She Did It Anyway podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's quite the setup.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And it's also, we're in New York. I feel I'm in Boston now and I miss New York so much. I just I miss the energy.
Yeah.
I miss
There's
everything.
nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, you can't compare.
I read your bio to everybody, and it's been so amazing to just see the growth of Chillhouse and also just the personal brand that you've built for yourself online. When I first met you or saw you, it was at Create Cultivate. You were speaking, and I remember you were talking about like letting people go and transitioning and hiring and firing and all of this stuff. And I was
Interesting. I forgot what panel that was.
Yeah,
I was talking about firing people.
Yeah, and it was like the growth of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to know more. And so before we dive into that,
Okay.
who are you? What are all the things that people might not know about you, but like really how you got here today?
Ooh, okay. So who am I? So I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I always lead with that because I feel like
cool.
it's a big representation of who I am. First generation Colombian American. My mom is an entrepreneur herself, small business owner. She recently retired, but kind of grew up in this world of small business and watching her grow her tiny little spa to being like one chair in another salon to then having at some point 3 salons. And they were all still very small and modest, but there was definitely some glimmer of like inspiration there in me, to kind of follow in her footsteps. But I was a very distracted, like young 20-something with like very little direction. I thought I loved fashion, so I went to fashion college. I ended up dropping out twice because I was very, very naughty party girl, and I was also in the nightlife scene. So I worked in hospitality while I was going to school and ended up making like an incredible living there. So I, kind of was like, do I need school? Is fashion going to be where I end up? Is it worth it? Is it worth the investment? And I really kind of like, I jeopardized my education, I'd say, to kind of then, not settle for hospitality, but I ended up sort of going down that path for many years. And it wasn't until like my, mid to late 20s that I realized this was kind of, at least for me, a dead end road, dead end path, because I didn't see myself in management. I didn't technically want to be like a like an actual operator in hospitality. Like I always loved it, but I didn't want to be like in the trenches every night, because I had so many years of doing that, that to the point that I experienced burnout. So I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I need like a more like quote unquote normal 9 to 5. What do I do? And, you know, I had like very little experience at that point. I was like, no one's going to want to hire me. I dropped out of college, so I have like nothing to show for it. Luckily, this really incredible woman took a chance on me, and I started an internship that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. So I always like love to give her credit, because, you know, I didn't really have anything to show for myself at that age. And it was in that job that I realized I had way more than these credentials could have given me. And it was just ambition and, you know, the autonomy to really like step into something where I felt in control and where someone kind of trusted my intuition and let me sort of lead with that. And that was what that job afforded me. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years after that, I went off on my own, a couple of little, you know, fun stories in between that I feel like I could talk about for hours, but there was like a possibility of me doing a Vogue job, and like, I, you know, looked into working at like a tech development startup and had a terrible interview experience there. I talked to Coach about working there. So I had a few tempting, I'd say, scenarios in which I could kind of continue being in like the quote unquote workforce. And then ultimately it was during a really shitty interview that I was like, I don't think I can work for anyone. I'm done. Like I did it once really technically, because I don't consider my hospitality jobs like career type roles where I worked in a corporate setting, right? So I only feel like I've ever worked like one corporate job. And then I was like, that was it. Like I had the best experience working for this person who still remains my friend to this date. And it was a very intimate corporate setting. Like when I tell you, it was like a startup, right? It wasn't like a buttoned up establishment or anything like that. But I was like, that's it. I'm done. And I turned to my boyfriend, who's now my husband. I was like, I don't really know exactly where to start. Like I've learned some things, you know, through this job, but I need some like just a little direction. Like what should I do? And it's from there that I started a couple of my own small businesses. I had a creative agency at one point where it was like an events creative agency. So like production and like also kind of weaving in influencer. It was like very early influencer days. I also had a blog called Taste the Style, which is what, if people have been following me for a while, they may know that about me. I had like a content side to my previous life, which was like basically, I still like think of that time so fondly, because it was, you know, content is so fun, and like you get to do it. It's like there's a true business to it, but in that time I was like more creative,
right?
Because I wasn't treating it as like I didn't have the need to make money from it, because I had this like other side hustle happening.
Right.
So that was fun. And then I think at some point my husband was also opening up bars, so I ended up still in hospitality, luckily through him. And I was like, oh, I miss physical. I miss having like a place to gather and like a physical place to feel like it's mine. Like I've never really had that, but I feel like I have it a little bit through you, but I want something that feels like mine, you know? And that's kind of where Chillhouse came to be, but it was all just like years and years and years of kind of putting all the pieces together and realizing that this was what I was always meant to do.
Yeah, that's so cool, the evolution of how you got here, because one, I didn't know any of this, and two, I just, whenever, and I know a lot of the women that are listening, whenever we look at someone that is successful, right, and has what looks like a thriving business, we just assume you have it all figured out. It was really easy. You like,
I wouldn't say we're
like,
even thriving yet, but I think there's this perception that we're big, and like, it's been
and
a journey.
It's like you cultivated that energy and brand. So when people are looking at that, they're like, oh my God, like I can't do that. Like, how did she do it? And so just hearing like dropping out of school, really going through different jobs and being like, this is not for me. Like, I don't want this. your mom being an entrepreneur, I didn't realize she also had a spa, which is really, really cool. Was she like, go for it, like you should do it? Or was everybody in your life being like, go, like start your own business? Or like,
I didn't ask anyone for permission.
You didn't.
No.
It's because you're a New Yorker. I'm telling you, there's something about being in New York. My husband
my mom doesn't have, she's like, she's an immigrant, right? So everything with her was like phone calls and piece of paper. Like there's no digital savvy in her whatsoever. So I couldn't really lean on her for certain pieces of advice. I think I definitely would go to her for certain like, more like, I don't know, business owner to business owner kind of banter. But there wasn't any of that happening. It was more like I saw the white space. There was room for innovation when it came to spa and disruption of spa. There was nothing like Chillhouse at the time. There were sort of these like single service brick and mortar establishments like Heydays and the Now, but there wasn't something that really put it all together and made it a place that felt like a community and like a third space essentially. There was like the Wing at the time and like all these like kind of like membership places, but they were closed off and expensive to access. So I wanted to create a space that felt like anyone could access. They could come in, grab, pastry and coffee and sit down and get work done or read a book and then maybe pop in for a facial after or a massage after. Which
I love. I love the concept of it. And I think that even just thinking about New York and what I was going to say too is like, I grew up so like conservative in like a very small, town that you lose cellular service when you drive in. Like it was just horrendous. And my husband's from Yonkers and he's just like a risk taker and he doesn't ask for permission and nothing. We have a 7-year-old and even watching you raise Hendrix in the city and in Miami, I'm like, this kid is going to like, normal to him is going to be so different than what like the normal is for another kid. And we were just talking about earlier is like, our children seeing us as entrepreneurs and scrappy and living in different areas and like this is the norm to them. You know what I mean? Like totally. It's a really cool concept to see it come to life, especially like I don't know, just reflecting on how everything comes out. But I definitely think New York plays a whole lot to the mindset that you have of like confidence. I didn't need confidence. I don't need to ask anybody. And so when you're thinking about okay, Chillhouse, you've developed this idea, go to market, you create this space. What are some of the things that maybe you weren't like prepared for?
Oh God, so much. I think there was this level of confidence where like I was like, this is definitely needed, but I don't think it was a model that was executed in the past because it's a very hard model to execute. Do you know what I mean?
What is it specifically?
It's that I wanted it to be an affordable place for spa experience. And the reason it doesn't exist is because the margins don't allow for this like affordability bracket all that often. You want to make sure that there is room for upward mobility within the team that exists there. You want to make sure that your price points also kind of are aligned with your brand mission and all that. So there's always this like internal battle that I deal with. I'm like, we can't increase our prices too much, but we want to make sure everyone's happy, with their pay. And like that sort of internal sort of dialogue from a business owner standpoint is like, it happens. And now looking back, I'm like, okay, so I get why certain people do single service businesses because they're able to basically replicate those and then turn them into franchises. But like Chillhouse is not going to be a franchise business. I don't think it's really, it's not designed for that reason, and it was never designed for that reason. So yes, there were a lot of hiccups, I'd say, from a financial standpoint. Didn't always check out. We had to make sure that we were making up for losses in revenue here by also kind of doing all these events and partnerships and content partnerships. So there was a lot of I'd say being scrappy and reactive to just the financial needs of the business, because it was like, it's like payroll, like we need to make payroll. How do we make this happen? It was that kind of the whole, couple of first years of Chillhouse, it was very much that, and it was so stressful for that reason. So looking back, I'd be like, maybe I should have simplified it a little bit more. Maybe it shouldn't have been all these things, but then it wouldn't have been Chillhouse, and it wouldn't have been our story. And I think we've taken steps to make sure that's not what we do now. Like that's not the position we're in anymore. And so it's all worked out, but
Just
you
figure
know,
figure it out along the way.
pretty much, yeah.
I was saying to, we had Jacqueline Johnson as a guest, and she said one of the things that she missed about early stage entrepreneurship is the naiveness of like, we're going to figure it out. Like, this is fun. This is a great idea. Let's just go to market with it. And then you're like, oh shit, like, this doesn't make sense. Oh no, this is, I see why these people aren't doing it that way. And
Exactly.
it's just, you learn the hard way, but I don't know what other way to learn, you know what I mean, outside of just implementing it.
Yeah, people can give you their 2 cents, but again, you have to kind of stay true to the story and the reason that you started it. And so if you end up doing a pivot just for the sake of scalability or financial, even regular stability, then your customers are going to fall off and they're going to be like, well, I'm not interested in this anymore. And so it's like, then you're done. Your business is just done.
Yeah.
So you do have to kind of stay true indefinitely while also making sure you're taking on the opportunities that really do make sense, and the data proves itself eventually, and you kind of go in that direction too.
Yeah.
And you hope that everyone's happy with what your decisions are.
How many employees do you have now at Chillhouse?
I never know this answer because we have our store team and they're all employees. So it's like vacillates between like 42 to like 50 something.
Yeah.
And then our corporate team is still rather small, like 6 of us.
That's awesome.
And then we have a contractor stack as well that we kind of consider an in-house team.
In-house.
Yeah.
So let's talk about target expansion and new product offerings. Like, when do you know it's time to add new products?
Mm-hmm.
When and how and who helps you decide these products that are going to market? Like, where are you getting these ideas from? Like, walk us through what that looks like.
It's a great question. I guess the first part is, how do I decide what new products?
Yeah.
I guess the whole thing is the same answer.
Like, where do you begin?
Where do you begin with just products in general?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for us, it was a really simple. We've tested other products in the past. Let me start there. We've done, candles, we've done face tools, we've done merch and things like that, but those weren't necessarily scalable products for us. These were not like manufactured products or formulated products. I think once you get to the stage of formulating something, that's a big investment, right? That's like you're putting tens of thousands of dollars on the line to, make sure you're selling through everything within like a year or so.
Yeah.
That's kind of like your timeline for a bulk PO. They're big risks when you're actually doing it. So for me, I didn't want to do it until I knew exactly what would actually tip us over the edge. Like, what's going to be that thing that goes viral? What's going to be the product that makes so much sense for us and at the same time makes sense for mass, if I wanted it to be mass. And it was when I was literally just talking to a couple people. They were like, have you looked at the press-on industry? It's like really interesting. It's like having a resurgence. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, it is. I've thought about nail as being the first product that I wanted to enter, but I didn't really want to do just another polish or another. We wanted to create something that felt authentic and fresh, and maybe like it was having a resurgence, or I always kind of think about what's been in the drugstore for a long time that hasn't been brought to like now the Sephora consumer, right? And that was definitely press-ons, and it was 2020, and it was around that time that then the doors shut at Chillhouse, the physical space, and we basically were like, okay, this is our product, this is our time, and this was actually a very COVID-like product to develop. So not only did we create a product that was very timely,
literally nobody was going to get their nails done,
and it wasn't even like calculated of us. It was like, no, we actually wanted to do this, but like we didn't have the time to execute on it. So it was kind of like, let's go. This was our time. We had nothing else to do other than just, I don't know, try to file for loans and shit all day long and stress out. And I was actually pregnant, so it was a very stressful time for me. But we did it. We launched press-ons, and it just kind of took off. So I guess now the back end of the question is like, where do you go from there? When you have a product that actually takes off, you should follow that pattern, right? Why does it take off? Why is this really resonating with the consumer more than this one? And how do you recreate that experience in a way where you're still telling your story, you're still filling the line with products that make sense from a storytelling standpoint. So for us, we want to make spa treatments, for your home, right? We want to exist in your bathtub. We want to exist in on your vanity, your pantry, on your nails. I want to be everywhere for anyone when it comes to self-care.
So amazing.
But I have to start in one category, and I'm doing really well. We're doing really well with press-ons. Let's keep that going. Let's double down. There's a formula we want to grow. Let's keep growing that line of products. And then as you kind of think about the different categories that you want to enter, I think for us, it's really like, how do you replicate that formula?
Yeah.
Right? How do you create something that feels sticky and exciting and fresh and is also really attainable, and that also kind of backtracks to our ethos and our store? Because at the end of the day, our store, we're spa experiences, right? So, you know, if we're not recreating something that we have as a physical experience in store, then what else can we do to actually supplement that experience?
Yeah.
How do you kind of track it back to the store or the spa experience in general? So that's kind of what we think about. And I mean, I even have conversations with our retailers, be like, hey, like, what's doing really well for you guys? Like, where do you feel like we can kind of improve? And all that, I think, is also totally fair to do, and have conversations with your advisors and people that have your brand your fellow brand founders, beauty brand founders. I have so many friends that have beauty brands, and I'm like, what's your top selling product, and why do you think that is? And like, those conversations are so important, even if they don't directly relate to your business, but like getting a glimpse into other people's success stories and like why that took off and applying it to your brand, I think is, you got to do it.
So important. And I love that there is a community that there's no gatekeeping. Like, they are sharing the successes, and
there's a little bit of gatekeeping
where,
in beauty. I'd say everyone's maybe probably a little protective of like their chemists, manufacturers, all that. But there is also this like other world of like open source, I'd say, and platforms that exist for that.
Yeah, I use the night oil, and I'm obsessed with it. I literally go to sleep looking like a glazed donut every day, and Matt's like, "What is on your face?" And it's like the best thing ever. But it's so interesting hearing you talk about all of this stuff, and also knowing your background, because it just feels like, you ever feel like when you hear someone say stuff like this, they're like, oh, they went to school for this. They were like, you know what I mean, trained in this. And so it is so inspiring to see and hear the knowledge that you have when it comes to this space, and the willingness to expand and try new things and understand the market with no background outside of just trying it.
I'd say I'm still learning.
Yeah, it's so cool, though.
I think there's definitely two camps when it comes to entrepreneurs. One's being like, when it comes to beauty entrepreneurs, one's being like the pros, the ones that like have, esthetician experience, or, are makeup artists or hairstylists and have been in the trenches of salons, and then like decide to create products based on what they felt was missing when they're in those situations, which I feel I have a little bit of a part of, just based on being a salon owner and my mom's background. So like growing up in that world. And then there's the people that just genuinely feel like they're consumers, and they haven't felt like they've had this one product for them. And I feel like I'm also in that camp as well. So I feel like I try to fuse both of those sides of me, and being like, as a consumer, what do I want? And then as a pro, someone that sits on this side, like, what's needed? Like, why don't I see like made for our services in store?
Yeah, you posted something on your story a few weeks ago about the consumer being at a salon and not speaking up when they don't like something, right? And then they leave, and they leave this like horrendous review, and it's like, no, tell us now.
Yeah.
And it's just
some people are like, I have social anxiety. I'm like, I totally understand social anxiety. Right. I wish there was like a button you could press or something.
Right, or just like how you can share it anonymously. But I think that it is, as a consumer, you forget that not only is that going to give you a great experience, but it's going to help the business and the other consumers that are coming, So I just thought it was a great point to call out, because it is, every time I go and I'm like, I don't like something, I'm like, I don't leave a review, but I'm just like, she worked so hard on it, let me just keep it moving. But
I know. You always feel bad. Like, not everything turns into a bad review, but a lot of times they do come back and they're like, can I get a redo? And that costs us money. And it's like, well, that's not fair to the salon owner. We don't bill our team back for these sort of, chargebacks or anything. We don't do we don't give refunds for those things. We just do redos. But it's like, yeah, all these little hiccups that people just don't really see unless they're on that side of the fence, right?
Yeah, totally. But even from your social perspective, you specifically are very vocal on your social, and you've built such a great platform of just your own personal brand. And so with a name like Chillhouse, I would love to know what your routine is as, you know, I called you in your email that I sent like a chillpreneur. Like, are you this laid back person that I feel like, you know, I want to know what your routine is. You're like, no, absolutely not. What does it look like being an entrepreneur, a wife, a mom, being pregnant with a second baby?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
I think my chill ebbs and flows. I think when I'm in like a high stress period of time where something like an urgent project or something is super time sensitive, I tend to kind of, my anxiety levels tend to tick up, and I kind of always like put work first in those moments. And then there are other times in my life when things don't feel as rushed or chaotic that I then take a step back and I'm a little bit more considerate with myself. And so I know of myself, and I know that those are my ebbs and flows of how I am. How I counteract some of those more stressful times is just by incorporating little moments of self-care however I can every day, no matter what, right? So I'm not ever going to be the person that can squeeze in like 10 appointments a week. I literally was at a panel the other day, and this entrepreneur was like, I have my self-care non-negotiables. I go get acupuncture twice a week. I get a massage once a week. I go to therapy 3 times a week. I'm like, how do you get any work done?
How?
And she's a mom. So I don't think I could ever be that, because I know I love like a bullshit, like I know I love to waste at least 2 hours a day on TikTok and Instagram. So that's where my my time goes. So like, and it's work.
Yeah, it's market research.
Yeah, it's both, right? It's like, I mean, it's work, but it's not. It's bullshit. It's like, it's
funny.
my self-care. It's not. And I kind of have learned about myself enough to be like, you know what? At least I'm doing something for myself in those 5 minutes that it takes for me to incorporate like a little moment while I'm getting ready, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about beauty too. It's like you get ready every day, and so if you can we can create products that just elevate that getting ready experience for people, and like that is their self-care moment, then that, you know, then we've done our job. And as long as we position it in a way that, you know, it's like, I'm doing this for me, and like that feels good, and that little reminder, then we've done our job. And so that's how I guess take care of myself, is by, you know, incorporating those moments that we've kind of set out for our customers.
Yeah, which I love that it completely aligns with who you are as an individual.
I'm like a speedy, I can't do like 2 hours of self-care.
Yeah.
And like journaling in the morning. I've tried.
Yeah, I do journal in the morning. It's nice, but not every morning.
I journaled for my baby for the first like month or so. It was a cute, like a page.
So cute. Yeah, my best friend does every birthday. She writes a letter to her daughters, and I got a notebook and I started, and I stopped after the 3rd year. I just forgot. Like, I was just, I need to write this.
A long time.
Yeah, really 3 years. Yeah. But I love that. I would love to know, from where you had your idea with Chillhouse, how did you start delegating to bring this idea to life, tapping in people? You talked about obviously having a team, a corporate team. Like, what does that delegation look like? And I think a lot of us can learn from that.
Yeah. The team. Okay, so I knew I didn't want to be day-to-day managing the store, because I knew my strengths were going to be in building the brand. So I couldn't be there touching or like, you know, doing face-to-faces with with customers every day. So for me, first hire immediately was a general manager, right? Which, funnily enough, ended up being this woman, Trinity from Gold.
Yes, so this was the conversation that you were having.
Yeah.
At Create Cultivate. They were talking, and she was like,
oh my God, I hated that panel. I sucked at it.
Yeah, no, it was so good. And she was saying, like, she ended up going to do something else, and that was like the power of her finding something else is to be let go.
Yeah.
Do you remember? She was so awkward.
I actually just took a screenshot of like my former photographer for Taste of Style. She's like shooting for Vogue Mexico. I'm like, man,
so cool.
It's so cool to see people like thriving. No, she's crushing it. But that was like an immediately like, okay, we need someone that gets us, is like an extension of like us, the business owners, the brand builders, the creators, whatever, founders, but then also can be there executing on the vision. And, you know, I think as we kind of continued evolving the company, it was very, you know, things just present itself. Like opportunities start presenting themselves, and I'd say issues in which you're like, this isn't what I want to do on a day-to-day, because I need to be here. And those are sort of like the roles you end up kind of hiring for. So like our next role was event manager, so someone that could actually like be there to manage all of these like small parties and actually large events, buyouts, things like that, partnership opportunities that were more 360, someone that can like be the negotiator, because it's kind of weird if I were to only negotiate, because sometimes I was part of the deal. So yeah, I think you just kind of, if you're not, you know, fundraising for millions of dollars where you have a team sort of built in or baked into the fundraise, you just kind of hire as you see there being a need and being, you know, an opportunity to actually bring someone on at a small or large scale, whatever.
What do you handle day to day now?
I'm all over the map, but I'd say product development, wholesale, social marketing, anything that's consumer facing. And also I'm doing their fundraise. I'm out there now trying to start our fundraise for our Series A. And for the first time I'm going to do it alone. Like my husband's going to help me through certain things, but I'm going to do all the pitches alone.
You excited
so
or are you anxious?
I am very excited. Yeah. Because I feel like for the first time I'm like, I got this. I'm confident. I know the business more than I've ever known it before. And it takes a long time to sometimes feel comfortable with the numbers and all that. And I feel good now.
What made you feel like, outside of just feeling good with the numbers, like when do you know, or when would someone know, like this is time for me to start funding? Or raising money?
I'd say the biggest thing, it depends on the business, of course. I'd say the biggest thing is that when you see that there's an opportunity, and if you can't fulfill it with your cash flow, then it's time to raise. For example, if, you know, in our case, we have a big retail opportunity ahead of us. You know, we're in Target now. We want to continue growing with them, but God forbid next year they're like, we want to take on this much, and we're like, you know, how are we gonna fund that? And there's like, you could do lines of credit. There's also factoring. There's ways to do it, but I think for me, I'm ready to bring on like strategic, bigger investors that can help us really scale up and do big things.
I love it. Before we do rapid fire questions, what are you most excited about for Chillhouse now? Like what are some things that, you know, we should look forward to?
I'm really excited for some products that we've just sort of ideated in the past couple of months, and seeing those through and kind of creating a new sensation around self-care and what those products should mean to you. Otherwise, I mean, I really, really would love to do pop-ups and like, you know, do some sort of tour. That's going to be a big production, but it's part of our fundraise. So hopefully we'll be able to come to different cities on like a small scale.
That's awesome. Yeah. That sounds so much fun. I feel like the in-person, especially after the pandemic, in-person has been such a game changer.
No,
like
we love that.
It's just, it's just, I know obviously you have the in-person at your spa, but it's just going to an event for one focus. It's been such a game changer. So let's do rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What is something that you missed from the start of your entrepreneurship journey that you'll never get back?
I think the flexibility and like fucking up. I think it's harder to fuck up now. Like you're just not allowed to anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to mess up here and there, but I'm done with the major fuck ups.
Yeah. Like, you know enough to not fuck up badly.
I've had enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had enough fuck ups to not fuck up that badly anymore.
What do you feel is an insecurity that has held you back over the years?
Oh, numbers. Yeah. Knowing my financials. I didn't understand the language by any means. Fundraising was a total, it sounded like gibberish to me. You know, understanding how to speak the language, It's a huge learning curve. It takes years and years and years of actually sitting with people doing, pitches and them asking questions, and then me turning to Adam. Even him, he's never fundraised from like a VC level before. He's only ever been like small friends and family checks kind of thing. So we had a lot of learning when it came to that side of the business. But again, luckily I have like a lot of angels that have been in my shoes before and have done it and come out on the other side and can kind of share insights and stories there. So I feel incredibly lucky to be able to tap them and be like, hey, walk me through this.
Yeah,
what does this mean? But that was always my hugest insecurity, was not really fully grasping it, and like also just not retaining it. I'm not good at just like remembering certain margins or this or that. So I have like a cheat sheet on my notes now, and now I can remember most of the things that I may get asked, but it's hard to just always keep that in your memory bank while you also have like everything else to think about too.
Totally. I think that's very intimidating. Like it could just having to memorize so many different things. Yeah. What trait most defines who you are?
I want to say fearless. I feel like I'm pretty fearless, and I think I'm confident in my intuition. So fearlessness and confidence.
I love it. And then the last one, what is the best advice you've ever received?
I don't know why I always say this one, but it's that just always keep working on your personal brand. I think I've given so much to Chillhouse, but I'm also happy in what I've built for myself, and knowing that like, whenever Chillhouse and I are no longer associated with one another, whenever that is, millions of years from now, who the hell knows like what is going to happen, that I have something else to show for it, and I can create something that stands on its legs because I've built something for my own self.
Totally. I love that so much, and very much aligns with what I do. So I love that. We end all of the podcasts with a fill in the blank.
Okay.
So you're going to say through, fill in the blank, I did it anyway.
Oh, through I did it anyway?
Yeah, like through, and then whatever it is that you went through or think or feel, I did it anyway.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so last time, through all the no's that I received, I did it anyway. Through the self-doubt, I did it anyway. Through the self-sabotage, all this stuff.
Well, definitely through all the no's. I've gotten so many no's in my life, and I feel like they always invigorate me. My most recent no, well, I've had a lot of no's since then, but it's 2021, I got like the shittiest response from a potential investor saying that Chillhouse like wasn't substantial enough, like what we did wasn't meaningful enough. I was like, okay, I'll show you. Yeah. So, the no's actually really do fuel the fire in me. I'm an Aries, so. I
love that. I love that you will take that and it'll fuel you, because a lot of people do like hear that, even if it's one no, and it holds them back. Yeah. So I love that. Thank you so much for coming. This has been amazing. Yeah. We have all our show notes with all of the amazing things that they can shop off of the site. So great. I'm really excited for that.
And I'll give you a code so you can include it in your voiceover, whatever you do.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I'm so excited. Okay. This has been amazing. Thank you guys for listening. Bye. Bye. And don't forget, no matter what, she did it anyway.
You did it, Mom.